I think I thought this might have changed a little bit, but the original kind of thing was exploring how machines influence people's behaviour. And I've talked about this already, and my naive example is traffic lights. So there's a system of traffic lights in the city, and they control the flow of cars, and in Wellington to a lesser extent the flow of pedestrians, but because cars are pretty big you kind of can't argue with them. So there's this kind of machine influencing the way that we move through our city. And then kind of complicating that up a little bit is looking at things like social media and Facebook and Twitter and the way that people use these technologies and those technologies influence their behaviour, and how marketers and advertisers are using that kind of technology to influence people's buying behaviour. But also, like in a school example, there's probably a fair element of peer pressure about people conforming because their lives are so kind of public on Facebook. So that's kind of the thing. But I think the other part of that is that the patterns that emerge from the limits imposed by the technology, and so again with the naive traffic light example, that's kind of like we've all seen the time-lapse kind of photos of time-lapse film of people moving and cars moving at light at intersections, and how that forms a pattern, and then looking at the kind of patterns that are forming as kind of media becomes more decentralised and not as controlled by kind of monolithic broadcasters as it has been over the last 50 years. And so what I want to do, well, what I'm planning on doing is having an exhibition called The Society for Living In, which is a play on the Bauhaus idea of a machine for living in. So we're really kind of living inside this machine. And what I want to do is make 3 sculptures and that kind of listen to what's been said in the gallery and also can tell how close people are to them. And on Friday night I stumbled across some research done at Carnegie Mellon University called Sphinx, which is an open source voice recognition software system, and I had the idea that it would be quite cool if the machines were listening in the studio space, but they had voice recognition software running so that they could tell the difference between a door slamming and someone saying a word, so that they'd only record if there was some semantic meaning behind the noise. And so the idea is that they'd spend some of their time recording and some of their time kind of talking, just to avoid any kind of feedback. So they'd be listening to what people were saying in the gallery, and when they recognised words they'd record just that word, and then in their talking phases they'd say those words back, and it'd be a bit of a random playback of the words, but people will attribute meaning to them anyway because of the way that our brains are always looking for patterns in things. And the other thing is that they'll evolve as they're in a space, they'll learn, they'll hear more, and what they'll say will be more and more influenced by the space that they're in. And then because there are 3 of them, they'll learn off each other as well. And the proximity detection is that the closer someone gets to them, the chattier they'll get. So if you walk up to one of the objects, it'll start talking more and more, and then if you back away from it, it kind of slows down again. Or maybe it could be the opposite. It might make sense if people are closer, it's listening more, and as you back off, it gets chattier. Actually, that might be the way to do it, because obviously the closer people are, the better quality of sound will be fed into the system. So if people are real close to them, they could be quite quiet. And just listen, and then when people move away they kind of get chattier again. And I'm planning on housing them in, I don't know what the right word for this piece of furniture is, but it's kind of a sideboard, and the middle has a turntable in it and a radio which you can lift and close a cover, and then one side's a cupboard where you keep your records and the other side's like a mirrored back glass shelved cocktail cabinet. So I find those 3 items, and the reason I'm interested in those is because they will have been in someone's lounge just playing information from a centralised broadcaster, so that, and they would have overheard, in inverted commas. People would have had discussions in those rooms as well, so it's kind of like the idea of the walls. The walls have ears. Yeah, because I thought about painting them originally, but I had a talk with my brother today, and he said that the kind of patina speaks of their history, in someone's lounge or wherever they were. And I guess it's that exploration of that they used to be this kind of one-way device, but technology's made the dialogue two-way, but it's also fragmented it as well. So like if I log onto Twitter, I'm following all of these people, and if you read the dialogue, it's really disjointed. It's just kind of just little idea lits floating around on a page, and that's what they will be doing as well when they just are saying words or phrases back, kind of out of context. And what will happen is that meanings will evolve from that. And the other exciting thing would be you could train them. You could play them, I don't know, like national radio or a talkback radio or parliamentary transcripts, and they'd learn, or they'd sound like what they were listening to. And then when you put them into a gallery space, what they sounded like would evolve as they were in the gallery.
What kind of technology or technology concepts besides speech recognition and proximity detection can you see yourself working with?
Right, well, the obvious one is Twitter, because they could be networked appliances, and so what they would do, as well as having a little chat in the gallery, they could all have their own Twitter streams and be chatting, posting to Twitter the things that they'd overheard in the gallery, and then possibly it could work the other way. So if people tweet at them, they could say those tweets using a voice synthesizer, so that would kind of connect them into kind of a wider social media context. So yeah, that's definitely something that I'd look at. And you could even decouple that project and run it on its own, where they could, there'd be this thing that was kind of listening and then chatting back. The trouble with that is that I see is it could easily be like a chatbot, which is not particularly sexy or interesting, and they're all over the place. You can go and chat to some AI, and it's a bit naff. So the thing would be for their responses to be interesting, some kind of rule about what they say.
So there seems to be a theme of finding devices or objects that either communicate only one way, as in expressing information or absorbing information, and giving them the ability to express that information in the opposite way as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's that the whole thing that's happening at the moment with the death of newspapers. Really, that's an old model of the centralised control of information, where there'd be like a newspaper publisher, and they'd gather the information and then disseminate it back into a community. And now, because of the low cost of technology, people are able to just conduct those dialogues without that centralised control. So it's kind of exploring that idea and what that means for us. The other thing as well is kind of how to like the technology that I'd use will be open source. Like I use a Linux operating system, probably Ubuntu, and the Sphinx stuff that I've found at Carnegie Mellon University is all written in Java and it's open source. So at the end of the project, I'd open source the art. So if you could go and find yourself the kind of furniture object that you like and install the software and wire up the peripherals, you could make the art yourself. And that's kind of a problem with the creative process now. And the record companies are finding this is how to make money off creative endeavours, really. And I don't know what the answer to that is, but it's definitely a big shift. And it's kind of sad as well. Like, we're not going to see the big concerts like Pink Floyd's The Wall, because there just aren't the record sales to pay for that kind of theatrical extravaganza anymore. And over the last kind of 20 years, I've seen like the end of a lot of kind of modern icons, like the collapsing of the Twin Towers and the the Concorde, and just a lot of things that were really expensive kind of been replaced by lots and lots of smaller, cheaper things. Like even this recording now, like just to be able to sit here and do it on a small camera is something that wouldn't have been possible kind of 20 years ago.